dream is absolutely free. The hustle is sold separately.
That hunger to be more, to do more, to give more.
You've got to go put in the work.
Success takes time.
What do I want to do every day for the rest of my life? Do that.
Brought to you by Mati Energy, it's The Healthy Hustle, a show where we interview today's movers and shakers, influencers, and entrepreneurs. Get an inside look into their stories and how they hustled to get to where they are today.
Hustle is waking up one day, the day before you die, and realizing you gave it your all, emotionally and executionally, in theory and strategy and in execution.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of The Healthy Hustle. Today, we are here with Margaret McNab, a freelancer and growth strategist based in Durham, North Carolina. Margaret, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Great to have you in. I appreciate you coming out. Super stoked to get to dive into your story and a little bit more about your impact on the Durham entrepreneurship community.
Cool, I'm happy to be here.
Right on.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone who's been in the freelance economy for so long, I'm really excited for this conversation since freelance seems to be kind of the new sexy thing. People are really trying to figure out how to make it work. But, you know, you've been doing this for a long time, you know, and I'm sure you've kind of had some ups and downs and bumps along the way that we'll jump into. But to get things going, I really want to start out with, you know, Margaret at Oregon University. Mm-hmm. What's going through her head? How is she planning for the next few years? Was freelance in your head at this time, or what are you studying at that?
Oh, boy. Freelance was definitely not on my radar whatsoever. I went to University of Oregon for anthropology and business, and I really felt that was a power combo.
Yeah.
And I still do believe that, although it took a little while to prove it. But yeah, I wrapped up school and kind of had that realization the day after graduation. You know, I had tassels and all that awesome stuff, and then the next day I was like, gosh, I really never thought past graduation
this
day.
moment.
Yeah, never. I am guilty of that for sure. So I found myself thinking like, okay, well, what didn't I accomplish in college? So the first thing was like, okay, you know what? I would have loved to have studied abroad. I wasn't able to do that at that time. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to figure out how to get myself out of this country.
For sure.
So yeah, so that summer, I had taught English while I was at the University of Oregon as well, to ESL, English as a second language. And so that summer, I ran a language program at the university, and a bunch of Fulbright and Humphrey scholars, and all that, and was led to believe that you could get jobs abroad teaching English. So I said, okay, great, I'll do that. I said, where can you do it? And I listed off all these places, and the Czech Republic was one of them. And I said, okay, that sounds good. So I spent the next few months living in my parents' basement, working at a call center for $8.50 an hour. I took as much overtime as I possibly could.
That's a hustle right there.
It
right?
was a hustle. It was pretty lame. It was pretty lame. I just made a game of that.
So was the goal? Was that like helping build you up for that trip to the Czech Republic?
Yeah,
why were you doing that?
Because I needed to pay for it.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So I spent a few months doing that, and then once I had put together enough money, then I applied to a language school in the Czech Republic in Prague, and then basically moved out there in January. Without really realizing exactly what I'd done, but I was just like, peace, you guys, I'm out of here. We'll see you never. Yeah, I'm not coming back to the U.S. ever. So
was that the mindset when you left? Like,
this
could be an adventure for a long time, or
I think the theme with me that I don't know will probably reveal itself over the next over this podcast is just. There hasn't been like this grand plan for me. I was never one of those kids who's like, I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. I'm going to be a fireman. I'm going to be a whatever. That was just never really been the way that I've operated, for better or worse.
Which is really refreshing, honestly, because I feel like, you know, when I was in school, and even, you know, some of the high schoolers I've talked to, and even the middle schoolers, like there seems to be this pressure on them to like figure it out.
To know,
and it's like, well, why really? Because at the end of the day, the path you take, as long as you just lay your foundation in building your skills and, you know, learning something you're interested in, you're probably going to get where you need to go, right? And one of the things that I try to talk to some of these younger people I spoke to about is just like follow your interests and be open to experiences, which is why I'm really excited for this conversation too, because it sounds like that's something that you've held true to. And this trip to the Czech Republic is a great example of something that you're like, well, this really interests me. I did this while I was at Oregon. Let me pursue that further and see where it takes me.
Yep.
And the overseas adventures are super popular, right? People want to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
Can you just give us a few more details around how you set up that overseas experience? Who were you working with? What organization was it?
Boy, I
This
did
might be
a
going
Google,
a little far
I
back,
did a Google search. I can't remember if Google existed at this time or not, but I did some sort of internet search to see where there were where the TEFL schools were, where I could go get a certificate, and I found a program in Prague. And it was cheaper to go in the winter months, and of course flights were cheaper. And I'm from Montana, so I went to University of Oregon, but I'm from Missoula, Montana.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was like, okay, great, I'll do that. So I moved out there just with nothing else in place, like truly, than this month-long TEFL program.
Yeah.
Right. I had no place to live, no job, no friends, no nothing. And it almost like it didn't, I was so focused on making that happen and, doing the call center thing that I almost like didn't even realize what I'd set myself up to do until I was saying goodbye to my parents.
That's a big deal, right? I
mean... And then I basically, I don't know, I must have set a record for just crying the whole way straight. I had like this massive panic attack on the flight, where the stewardess is coming around just like, okay, I'm not sure what's going on over here, but anyway, so then I got off the plane in Paris and was like, okay, well,
here we are.
Here I've really done it this time. So then I basically traveled around a little bit in January, which was not as cool as it sounds like it would be by yourself, but. Just a tremendous adventure. Then eventually made it to Prague, went through the class, which was also awesome. And then at the end of it, I was on expats.cz, the Prague, where you could find, I don't know, like an early Craigslist or something like that. And I found an apartment that seemed like a decent neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was cheap. There was a couple of roommates that weren't there when I said, I'll take the place. I just really was, I don't know. I now when I look back and I'm like, damn, I don't know if I could do that again. But anyways,
that young spirit just driving you.
Yeah, just like I don't know if it was fearlessness or foolishness or what exactly it was.
A little bit of both.
Something that started with an F, I guess. So then I applied to a couple of schools, got a job teaching English to Fortune 500 company executives. So that's what I did next. I taught, the attorney for Philip Morris, taught her English. I helped the director for Eastern and Central Europe for British American Tobacco, the marketing director. I helped him. He wanted to learn how to be funny at conferences, and I was like, okay. This is a good challenge.
That's a really interesting experience. You're interacting with some of these movers and shakers, right? And
yeah. And I was just a kid, Yeah. But I was helping them, figure out how to be themselves and how to communicate like themselves in a different language. It was so fun, and I also kind of had, I was able to see what executive life looked like.
No kidding,
in some ways.
Were you picking up on anything that you kind of have carried with you?
I don't know. I guess just that they're real people.
Yeah.
It doesn't. They're real people who had real concerns. This one group of engineers that worked at the I don't know. There's everything was in Czech, So I don't even remember exactly what the business did, but anyways, so these guys they just wanted to learn how to swear in English, and I tell you. That was one of my finest English lessons of all time, and it still is in my top 5, proudest professional accomplishments.
That's awesome.
It's teaching these guys how to swear like a real English speaker. I'm telling you, that is top 5. It's not moving off the list.
What an incredible way that this journey has gone for you. You went overseas to teach English. You didn't really know who you'd be teaching to. Now you're interacting with these movers and shakers. And still pursuing this kind of passion you had born at Oregon, right?
Yep.
But
all about people.
All about people. All focused on helping these people through teaching through the English language, which is super cool.
Yep.
And eventually you brought it back to the United States. So kind of get us to the point where you're over there and it's time to come home.
Yeah. So, I think it was the second winter that came by, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. There's a reason that I left Montana. I went to Oregon, which was certainly warmer. And then, that was part of it. Then my mom had some health issues and all that. So, so it was just time to go home. So, when I was, so my friends back home were saying, hey, you should move back to Portland, and I was like, well, I'd never actually lived in Portland, but sure, yes, that is home, isn't it? So my friend Tyler was like, just come home. I said, okay, great, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So he helped me find kind of get my life started out there, find a place to live and all that. And I had nothing at this time.
This is another big transition for you, right? Like,
yeah. So I moved I moved to the Czech in with a backpack, and then I moved to. I remember was back in the States for maybe like 5 days or so, and then I was like, all right, now I'm off to Portland. I'm moving up there now. So I take the bus, the Greyhound bus from Bozeman at this time to Portland. And I roll up, and my friend, my college friend Chris, comes and she picks me up, and we're loading my backpack, my big backpack, and a smaller backpack in the trunk of her car. And I remember her saying, "Well, Margaret, when are you moving here for real?" And I was like, "Dude, I just did."
That's incredible.
And I'm staying at your house for a little bit. Cool, right?
Guess what?
Yeah,
I'm coming with you.
Exactly.
Oh man, that's what you see the pictures of people taking a picture of a U-Haul. Like this is all I own. It's well, this is a backpack, and this is all I got.
Yeah,
diving in head first. I love it.
It was before iPods or anything like that, so I also had just these huge sleeves of CDs. Like where you would buy just big piles of them, right? So I'd put all so. Anyways, it was really, really heavy. It was like, I'm going to bring all my books and all my media and stuff everywhere I go. I was like, oh. But anyways, yeah.
Well, this is another kind of fun transition to talk through is like getting adapted to a new city, right? Like, and trying to find your way. And, like you said, you've kind of followed your interest. What was sparking your interest when you moved to Portland? What were you getting excited about? How did you figure out that next kind of adventure or next venture to get involved with?
Yeah, kind of like, fumbled my way a little bit. And then with these same friends, my friends had always been very creative and had a lot of musician type friends that were bands and all that. So I would go to shows, and this same friend Tyler, we would, go out a lot in Portland together. And one time we were at a show, and this red-haired woman walks up to me, and she's like, "So I hear you're looking for a job." And I was like, "Oh, good. Well, I guess the secret's out."
Small town.
Yeah, exactly. She says, "Well, I've got this music PR firm. Do you want to come and work for me?" I was like, "Is this real?"
What?
Yeah. I was like, well, sure.
Sounds pretty cool. Show up to a concert, get a job. Like.
Yeah. And so it was, it was a real job, and it ended up being kind of my, the beginnings of a lot of beautiful things in my life. But it was a non-traditional job. It was a freelance gig. Yeah. Right. And so because my work in the Czech had been non-traditional, because it seemed like an easy yes and a good opportunity and all that. But I think even at the time, I didn't quite know that this was like the fork in the road.
Okay.
Yeah. So just that I was continuing to pursue this alternative path, which was, it was a wild ride. We worked with independent musicians and record labels, and I did that for, I want to say 3.5 years. I ended up working in recording studios, managing bands, tour managing, just doing all sorts of stuff just within music, really starting to...
in a totally new industry for you.
In a totally new industry, in a kind of an awkward time in that industry. So this was...
When is this?
So this was about 2006, I would say. So 2006. So this is all the time that the music industry was shifting. Physical distribution was going away, and the digital transition, right?
iTunes is coming online.
That's right. So we went from selling, $17 a CD, right?
Dollar song on
Goody,
iTunes.
to 99 cents on iTunes. So the pie was getting smaller. So for me, doing PR, people really needed help reaching out and getting some attention and all that. At the same time, on the publication side, on the media side, those jobs were going away too, right? Because it's the same issue. It's going from physical to digital.
No kidding.
Distribution of news. So it was just kind of crazy. You know, you just get
sure.
these emails.
You're on the ground
like
level
the whole
watching,
LA
yeah.
Times, just, you know, this huge layoff that happened. And it was just, you know, one after the next of those. So, so it was a pretty challenging time.
But probably a pretty good foundation for you to get into digital further down in your career.
Yeah, it kind of was. I had so much fun on MySpace.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. It's really like music. That was just kind of the platform that a lot of
No kidding, it was.
Band discovery and all that kind of stuff happened on.
Yeah.
A lot of.
I had mine for a
promotion
little
happened
while.
to
I know that.
Oh man, it was
The glory days.
Oh, it was fun when it was fun. But at the same time, it was so hard to make ends meet. It was, I really can't stress that enough. It was so challenging. And I think I also, at this point, living in Portland, there's huge creative community. The industry is mostly service. It was kind of before tech and a few things.
Yeah.
So there's this big transitional time there as well, which was really exciting to be a part of, really cool, but also, it was really challenging. So
For sure.
at the same time as I was doing this work and really struggling to make ends meet, I remember one time one of my musician friends came over. She's like, "Oh gosh, I don't know, she was in between paychecks or something, waiting for some, I don't know, she just wanted to have some lunch or whatever. She was hungry. So I was like, well, come on over to my house. I'll cook us up something. I think I've got some eggs or whatever.
Yeah.
So I go and I toast up some bread and it's all moldy and I'm just looking at the two of us just like, damn, this is a sad scene.
Freelancing at its finest. Here we are sitting with the moldy bread.
Yeah, so at this point I had I had my anthropology degree. I'd gone abroad. Now I'm working in music. And this resume was just super confused, right? And I'm still like,
what are you
entry level.
in? Yeah,
that's right.
It's
What
really
do
tough.
you do?
Yeah.
So I was, applying for jobs in the traditional market as well at this time, putting a lot of energy into it. And in 1 year, I think the year before I left Portland, I really made a big effort at becoming part of the traditional workforce.
I got you.
Right?
So you kind of had that realization of like, hey, there is another option of how to work.
I saw how my friends were making it happen, and it was kind of confusing to me. That my own path was, I was maybe felt a little self-conscious about it, but truly just was like, I'm just done eating moldy bread. This is so lame. So
I've had enough. Here we go.
Yeah. So I started applying for jobs, and in 1 year I applied to over 300 jobs. I got to the 5th round of interviews 3 times.
Man.
And at the end of it, I had 0 jobs, and it was just so demoralizing and all
I can
that.
only imagine.
So I think that there's, I think it's easy to say like, or it's easy to think that my hustle has always been a choice, and it wasn't.
Wow.
It truly wasn't.
Yeah.
It was at that point. It was by default. It was out of necessity. It was
You had to at that point, right?
Yeah, and it was just it was it's all fine, and there were so many great things about that time, but it was very stressful too. So finally I was just like, I got to get out of here. Like, I don't know what's happening. So hindsight's 2020, and this was 2009, and I was just so sure that the problem was Portland. Right? Yeah, it's like
I'm struggling
here.
Like I gotta go.
I got it all figured out. Portland's the problem. I'm out of here. So I'd been considering moving down to San Francisco. I had a bunch of wild ideas and all that. And then I met a guy.
Okay.
Who was working in advertising, and he had gotten recruited out here to Durham, North Carolina.
Awesome. Here we go. Welcome to the Bull City.
Yeah, that's right. So when McKinney won nationwide, so that was like almost 10 years ago.
Awesome.
Or so.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was part of that round of recruits. And so as we were, packing up his house and all this, and he was about to embark on this trip across country, drive across country, I'm just thinking like, dang, I want to drive across country too. And I was supposed to be down in LA with a client on another project.
Okay.
And I called her up and I was like, dude, I gotta see about a guy. I gotta see about I gotta see the country. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So that's probably about 2 hours later, I got into the moving van.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another, chapter of
Yeah.
your life where you're going with that interest, right?
Exactly,
I'm going for it, diving in. Like, that's just, there's this
Yeah.
spirit with you that's happened multiple times so far. It's like, you went for it, right?
Yeah, I definitely went for it. I just was like, I was ready for something new.
Yeah.
So then showed up in Durham, sight unseen, and at that time Durham looked a whole lot different.
I'm sure it did, man.
There
That's
was
a while
like
back.
2 places to get a drink, and I was like, oh no, no, I've really done it this time. But that ended up, it has certainly turned out to be a good run for me here.
No
so.
kidding.
Mm-hmm.
So, you landed in Durham, and it's like, I got to get it together, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you kind of learned the hard way in Portland that maybe how you were doing it before didn't work out. You had this realization with applying to all these jobs. It's like, what's going on?
Right.
So now you got to figure out the next way to make it work in Durham, if you will.
Right. And so remember that my theory was that the problem was Portland.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, so you were thinking Durham's fresh start. I can still do this freelance thing here?
No, I was thinking this is the land of jobs, no doubt. I've never considered this place. I've never really thought about North Carolina. I don't know anything about it, but I'm certain that there are jobs there. And so I moved out here and was just totally certain that there were going to be, marketing and PR jobs aplenty, and there just really weren't. Because again, it was 2009.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. So
And we just went through like a financial crisis here.
That's right. That's
man.
right. Yep. So I said, okay, well, I know that there's clearly not jobs, and I applied for tons and just didn't go anywhere. Had informational interviews and so on and so forth, but just wasn't going anywhere. So I was like, okay, well, if there's not a job, I know that there's work. Because marketing departments are smaller than ever, and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be this other kind of non-traditional thing that I already know.
Yeah.
So I had a job working in the Nasher Cafe, which is the art museum here.
Okay, yeah.
And that was a beautiful environment to be. It was also, I think you get paid like $2.15 an hour here,
wow.
Which was a big shift because service economy was like the big thing.
Yeah.
That was always a reliable source of income.
And now you got cut down.
Well, yeah, it's just like minimum wage is just a totally different thing over here. So I'm like, okay. And I'd never done service before. So I was like, okay, well, all right, fine. So we're doing this too. And then, spent the rest of the time just out there kind of looking for work.
Yeah.
So at that point I did what was now is kind of the world that I live in and love, but at that point was far more uncomfortable. I was going to networking events like crazy.
Yeah.
I was,
Well, you've gotten really good at it because when I went and got you'd already talked to like 3 or 4 of the people here. So that's a great skill to hone in on, and something you probably had to learn the hard way, right, when you're getting adjusted.
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, it's not. It's become more comfortable. I just have always been curious about people. In that time in Prague, I was basically paid to have conversations with people who, had varying levels of skills and ability to draw a conversation.
And this is a great thing that you can probably shed some light on for other people, because especially in the Raleigh-Durham area, there's a lot of events to meet people. And, even in other communities as well, and with entrepreneurship, a huge part of success can be your network, right? Being able to find the right people, connect with them, add value, bring value, whatever it is. How have you been able to navigate networking to be able to, connect with people, for an instance? Because I think a lot of times people walk into a room and they're like, here we go again, and you're trying to dissect like the proper way. Do you have any kind of like hard skills you can share with people about how you've been able to have success there?
I think the biggest thing for me is I'm endlessly curious about people.
That's awesome.
I walk into a room, I'm always, oftentimes the person I'm most attracted to is the one that I have never seen before.
Cool.
Just like, who are you?
Yeah.
So that's, I think that's kind of, that's an attitude or a way to approach those situations.
I think that's great.
That feels more powerful and empowered too than just like, oh man, I hope that somebody here wants to meet me, or I feel weird.
Being the one who wants to be interested in someone else, so like ask questions, dive deeper, try to find out more about that person.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I don't know. It's the advice that I've given, my team in one of my previous companies was, I mean, worst case scenario, just go hang out by the bar or the food or wherever, people will come to you, and you can, start up a conversation by having some awkward, making some awkward comment about, I don't know, water with no ice in it or something. I don't know, it's always awkward.
Yeah.
It's always awkward, but it's, right. This is,
Which is another great thing just to realize and be like, that's how it's going to be for a little while. But if you start navigating it, you build that network, then eventually those events become a lot more comfortable.
Yep.
Yep. It's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're in Durham. We're figuring it out. Like, you realize these marketing departments might need some reinforcements, and that seems like a good opportunity, right? So this is another position that I think a lot of freelancers find themselves in, and I'm sure you probably know better than I do, but about getting those first clients, trying to build that base and make the connections. So how are you starting to build up to get to where you are today?
Yeah. So let's see here. So at that time, I left Portland kind of in a whirlwind, as I want to do, apparently. Before I left, I was just like, everybody come over, take all my stuff, all my furniture, you could definitely, somebody needs to take all these jackets and sweaters and stuff, because I'm moving to the South. I swear to God, it was a very cold first year here. I truly did not know.
We still get some cold weather.
Yeah. I mean, I was pretty clueless at that time. But anyways, so I, because I just kind of blown things up out there and realized oh no, I don't know anybody here. I reached back out to my network in Portland, even though I was like, I'll see you later, music, I'm done with, I reached back out to my music friends and was like, hey guys, who do we know in Durham, North Carolina or thereabouts, anything like that? And it was really that network back there that took care of me out here.
Awesome.
Yeah, that made a couple of, 3 key personal relationships, introductions, and that's kind of how it started. So I think that there's something to be said for starting with friends of friends, or any sort of, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for connections or whatever.
A great place. Some of the lower hanging fruit, if you will, those relationships you already have.
Totally. I kind of realized that in order to get, it was going to take more music to get out of music. Right.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
So I worked on a festival down here and did just a little bit of PR and just a little touch of it just to start meeting people. And then one of the jobs that I'd applied to came through. Yeah. With the Durham Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is the tourism office for Durham. So I got to be in the PR office. Durham was my product, and it was really fun. So I met a whole lot of people doing that work too. That really started to expand things.
And probably at the beginning of when Durham started doing a lot of changes, right? I mean,
that's right. I mean, it really was right before. So that was when a few of the first music venues came into town.
Awesome.
And I remember doing this presentation in front of the team, just like, all right, you guys, I'm telling you, it's music venues, and it's music, and we need to support them in order that they're on the radar or whatever. So I got to write the first, this section about Pinhook and Motor Co. and
that's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. And then after I was there for a couple of years, I think maybe a little bit more than that. And then it was just time to go. I had gone from being completely freewheeling whatever to being in this having my first taste of structure and process and all this kind of stuff, and that was super exciting. For one thing, I learned so much, and then I was just really eager to get out and apply and to kind of marry those two things, right? The ability to go out and kind of make opportunity for myself with now, the new connections and all the stuff that I learned.
For sure, new perspective.
Yeah, yep. So I, while I was there, I kind of put the vibe out that I was looking for PR work and whatever. So, and within tech. Because I figured, it's a pretty easy transition, honestly, from musicians to tech entrepreneurs. There's, kind of a little bit of a, you're still doing product launches. You're still doing, these people that are kind of rock stars in their own might, right?
I got you. Interesting.
Yeah.
Some similar personality traits, you might say.
Yeah. But really, it's just like people with their baby who need somebody to
Cool.
To go out and speak well of it in the world and explain it to others and all that kind of stuff. So and I from that time in music and all that, I knew what it was to be the marketing budget.
Yeah.
It's like if you've really got no money other than like having something, then I can definitely help you.
That's awesome.
Just figure out how to. So maybe that hustle kind of,
For
has
sure.
made itself a part of my the way that I market too. Right.
That's awesome.
I was
Yeah.
just looking for.
Well, isn't the classic saying like less money makes better marketing?
Yeah,
Essentially,
I guess,
right?
Yeah,
Like,
I guess so.
that'd
I've
be-
never heard that one before, but yes, I absolutely agree. That's correct. So I left and went back out on my own. Had a couple of really great projects to work on. And just kind of built things up from there. So the second time I freelanced, it was very much by choice.
Okay. Yeah.
Very much by choice. And I had a much better idea of what to do and how to do it.
And this is probably where you can get some value for people that are in the workplace potentially wanting to make the transition into freelance. Were you doing anything before you kind of quit getting that paycheck to set you up for success during the first 6 months, or how were you preparing for that transition? Because time and time again, you've shown that you make the jump, right? You're not necessarily
exactly. Prepare. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But
But I think a lot of the point is, I think some people want to figure out how to get ready for it,
Yeah.
right? Can you give any advice to people that are trying to prepare for that moment?
Yeah, I mean, I built up that business, that initial book of business while I was still had my full-time job. I was also at that time, I had joined a nonprofit board, the Scrap Exchange Board. Had become the president of that. Had I don't know, just kind of expanded my network and was just doing a lot of stuff on the side, anyways.
Yeah.
And I just felt, my passion was really going that direction, and that's what I knew was
The signs are
making me
pointing.
keep.
It's
Yeah,
good,
the signs were just, and also I just, I was just getting frustrated. So, at that point, it's like there's
A few things pushing you towards that, and then it's like, well, I have the network, so why not try to do this?
Yeah, exactly.
And
And I just, I don't show up very well when I'm frustrated like that.
Yeah.
I just know that about myself, and that's not. There's no reason to.
And super, interesting that you're cognizant of that, right? And you know kind of where your energy is, and it's like, I have these things pointing in the right direction. And if there's one thing that I really pulled from what you've said pretty recently, is that the network, time and time again, has been so crucial for a freelancer, right? Like, get out, meet people, because you meet 50 people, one of them may be the crucial element to helping you, continue freelancing or whatever. So that's what I really am starting to hear time and time again throughout your whole history.
Yep.
That network has been super crucial.
That's right, and it's not. There's nothing that's immediately gratifying about networking. It's not like the next day you can turn it on or whatever. It's really about developing real relationships with people and showing up for them, and then that's why they show up for you.
It's a great point. I love that.
Yeah.
And this is fun because I definitely want to dive into some of what you've held true to during your freelance gigs, and very focused right now, growth strategy for a variety of different types of companies. Can you just give the people listening a quick rundown of the different type of companies you've worked for and kind of what they've focused on?
Yeah. I've worked across all sorts of industries. So. Music, tech, and music. I mean, like all sorts of different
music
genres
festivals
there too.
Moogfest, right? You've worked with?
Yep, I've done some kind of tangential work with them for the agency that I worked with. My husband works for them now.
Okay.
Let's see here. I've worked in tech, biotech, professional services. I've done some kind of more lifestyle stuff, tourism. I've worked with various types of agencies.
It's already a super dynamic blend.
Yeah,
in itself,
I know.
Right?
Like, I've had the opportunity to explore a lot of different industries.
And when someone's coming to you, when you're kind of approaching someone that you potentially want to work with, what's the pitch of why someone should work with McNab LLC?
Yeah, I think that the part of what people are attracted to is that I do have a little bit of an unconventional approach, I guess. That my work is really people-oriented. So I think that there's something that I've learned from going freelance in-house, or freelance, is how to be really effective as a consultant, what companies really need. So now I'm more able to, so each step also, my kind of freelance offering changed. Okay. So initially it was publicity, and then later on it was PR strategy. I kind of got frustrated with, as a publicist or a PR person, you're at the very tail of the tail end of things, and you're answering for decisions that you weren't a part of. You didn't have an opportunity to really set the
I gotcha.
The opportunity up for success. So then I said, okay, well, I want to be involved earlier on. So okay, so then I said, okay, I'm a PR strategist, marketing strategist, because then I realized, well, you got to kind of shape the environment too, so that then the message is more effective. And then I really learned a lot more about operations and what it takes for an entire company to really get behind a marketing message, and to make a company successful.
For sure. A lot of those decisions made at the marketing table affect just about every part of the business.
Yeah, everybody's got to be bought into it. Everybody has to own a little piece of it. I came to understand how to, because people is really what I'm passionate about and interested in. How to think about who plugs in where, how to assess skills, and all that kind of stuff. So my offering has really just grown every time I've gone in-house, out-house. Well, out-house isn't really that's not it. That's not the word I was going for, you guys. Freelance, I meant.
Yeah, working for companies.
Yeah, working in whatever.
In
whatever.
companies,
Client,
out of companies.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, as another piece of value freelancers can probably take is that just because you think your initial offering is this, it doesn't mean that's what's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, you have
to be open to change.
That's right. You really have to listen to just deep listening to understand what a company really needs, because sometimes they can misdiagnose themselves.
For sure. You think this is the problem when really it's back here, and a third party or your fresh perspective, I'm sure, can help them realize that. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's, when we talk about all the various industries that I've worked in and whatever, I think I'm fresh eyes with all of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I was looking at some of your content online, and I believe you gave a keynote at one point about authenticity in business. Yeah. So I can't remember what the date on this was, but authenticity is a huge theme right now. People, even on social media, people are talking about how the days of just putting out content are gone. You have to add value. You have to be authentic. Don't worry about reach and engagement, but worry about brand representation, right? If you connect with 5 people in an authentic way, that's better than 100 people in an inauthentic way.
That's right.
So I think, I'm bought into this theme. I think people want to be bought into this theme, but I think executing on that theme can be really tough for people to figure out how to do. And, in the environment that we're in, the Raleigh-Durham area, there's so many companies coming out of here, tech, CPG, you name it, we got it, right? How have you been able to help businesses embrace authenticity? And are there any vehicles that you think businesses should be using to display authenticity?
Yeah, it all comes down to values, and I think that putting real, honest thought into what our personal values are, and this is companies aside. It's important to know who you are in the world and what's important to you as a freelancer, as an independent. That is just as important as a large company. So actually taking the time to go through the exercise to really document what's important to you, and not like a long list, and not just surface level, what everybody says, but really thinking about thinking about what is real about why you went into business in the first place, and then kind of getting those values in place. What values do is they help you make hard decisions, right? And that's where I think authenticity is, just decisions, period.
For
right?
sure, yeah.
It's hard to know whether you're doing the right thing or whether you're taking the right approach if you don't have a barometer for that. So this is a very analytical and data-driven community and all that, but that's only part of the story.
Yeah.
Right. As far as if you are to keep your team engaged, if you are to really be able to set expectations with your clients, that needs to be founded on your values. So when I see companies that say, "Oh, transparency is important," it's like, well, then if that's true, then if you say it that way, just like literally with transparency, that sends a very clear message that you may or may not intend to send. Right? That means if transparency is important to you, then don't be surprised if your team feels like they should be able to see everything or be a part of every decision or whatever. So I think that just kind of as far as authenticity goes, those are easy places that companies trip themselves up.
Okay.
By not really documenting what their values are, but treating it as more of a creative exercise.
Okay.
Right. And that's just that is just slippery slope. It's better just not to have any at all than to write something and post it.
Well, this is a great piece of value for the audience, and I think my follow up to that is, how do you think those values should be created in a company? Who should be having those conversations? Is it an all hands meeting with your employees, or is it the founders sitting down and saying from day one, this is what we should be? And when do you think in the business's growth, or what stage of the business should those conversations be had?
I mean, I think that the earlier you can have them, the better. And I do think that the folks who own and are accountable for their culture, they're the ones, right, who have to set the tone. I think that there's something also to be said for a team having a voice or saying, this is this other dimension of our culture is just a beautiful and exciting thing, right? I'm an anthropologist, so this is what I get. What I'm just totally fascinated by in company culture too. But so teams really can say, well, this is another dimension of how things work, and then you add that in. But I think that there's a foundation that really has to lie with the people who formed the company in the first place.
That's great. And for so many founders building businesses, it's something that you really do have to pay attention to. And it may not be what you're developing day to day. It can kind of seem like something off in the distance, but you got to make it relevant and hold true to it, because that's like that's steering the ship in some cases. I like how you said that it can really help you make hard decisions when you come back and say, how does this align with what we really care about? And then drive it like that. Yeah.
So this last, so thinking about what I've gone in and out. So skipping back to this last bit of time that I've been freelancing. I think that that's one of the major differences, is that I sat down, the woman without a plan sat down and made a plan. The very first part of that exercise was, okay, what do I stand for? What am I trying to do in the world? And then what are the values that drive my decision making and that define me as a professional?
That's awesome.
So I captured those, and it has been a document that I've gone back to when I feel like something's just not right, or a client project just feels like it's starting to get off the rails, or which never happens, by the way, you guys. I am always on top of things. But no. So when things just start to feel uncomfortable, or if I am evaluating whether a client is appropriate to take, or what exactly I should do, then I go back to those values and I say, okay. Usually the answer is pretty clear. Yeah.
A great foundation for freelancers to lay. Thank you so much for sharing that tidbit on value. I love that.
Totally.
Before we sign off, I want to ask you a big question, because I feel like you've had so many dynamic experiences. You've been in so many different places in your life. If we gave you a microphone, you could speak the world for 5 minutes. What message would you want to share with everyone listening?
Man, I don't know. I don't even know that I would talk for 5 minutes, because I think that the the most important and most actionable thing that every single one of us can do in the world right now is listen.
That's incredible. Yeah.
It's just listen. I think that we are getting. It's easier and easier to get detached from each other. It's easier and easier to live within your own bubble.
Yeah.
It's easier to walk into a room and not know how to make connections, not know how to get ahead, and oftentimes the best way to get ahead is just to express some interest in somebody who's not like yourself, and then just zip those lips and just listen.
And time and time again, it seems like you have been able to sit back and listen and try to navigate the different, adventures that you've been in with your life. And I really appreciate you sharing those with us. The final thing is, where can people find you online if people want to get involved with the Freelance League that I know you head up, and then or potentially work with you? Where should they look?
I'm LinkedIn.
Okay.
I don't know. There's probably lots of cooler places where I could hang out, but I'm on LinkedIn, people.
Amen.
Margaret McNab. And then I don't have a website. I do all my business through LinkedIn. That's probably another tip. And then Freelance League is something also for folks to check out if they're interested to learn more about freelance or want to find other opportunities.
In a great community of independent workers based in the Raleigh-Durham area. So it sounds like a great resource for people to find work, find other people to connect with, and hopefully share some of those frustrations. And time and time again, it sounds like those communities have been crucial.
Safe place to network.
Amen.
Safe place to network. So freelanceleague.co, not com, co.
It's the cool one, right?
Yeah.
That's what I've been told.
The most desirable.
Well, Margaret, thank you so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to see what else happens with you.